Hello everybody and welcome back to Rakogis' Paper Tips. I know it's been a little while since my last video, but today, while I was building the model of Raiko, I figured I should take some time to talk about building limbs and appendages while I build and attach Raiko's legs. So let's get started. Okay, so if you're building something off the main portion of the model, sometimes it's built separately and attached to the model, sometimes just glued flat against the model like the teeth and other details. I mean, that's just the way the model is designed, and it would be extremely difficult to build it all together as one single enclosed figure with using tabs the same way as you use for arms and legs. But for arms and legs, there's generally a hole in the model that's you're supposed to fit it in, because gluing something flat against the model may work fine for teeth and other small details, but for the bigger details, it's a whole lot less secure. And thus, you have to attach it this way. Now, when building something like a leg, you can either build it off the model and build it down to the foot, or you can start at the foot and build your way up to the body where it's attached. And there's also some rare cases where you have to go both ways and then join them somewhere in the middle. And usually you follow the tabs. You build in whichever direction the tabs are pointing, similar to anything else. In the case of Raiko's leg here, there's the foot, and you can see the tabs point upwards. So I start from the foot and work my way up. Yeah. Now, at the same time, there's exceptions to this rule. I mean, like, if you're building an arm which has a very detailed hand, it's almost a sure thing that you want to start with that hand, because those details are a lot easier to make when you aren't being constrained by the arm in the way. But usually, it's set up right when you're designing, but there's going to be an occasion where it isn't. In those occasions, I'll let you in on a dirty little secret. You don't have to cut the tabs the way they appear on the pattern. If you think it would be easier to cut the tabs in different places, go ahead and do it. Sometimes your experience might, say, be different than the designer's experience. I've certainly had to open a few models in Designer and screw with the tabs on them. Maybe this piece would have been a little easier with scissors because it doesn't have a lot of... Okay, so now where exactly the folds go, you can always refer to your PDO instructions for this, but once you build enough of these, you start to get a little feel for how certain pieces are meant to go together. This foot pretty much goes the way I've seen a lot of feet go before. Yeah, feet can often be treated like closing pieces. I really should do a video on closing models sometimes. Okay, I've already cut out the next piece. Now, in a case like on legs, sometimes it's easier to just wrap it around like you do on other pieces, but depending on the width of the leg and the position of the tabs, sometimes it's easier to just glue it and wrap it. Glue the tabs. And once it's secure, just stick it on. Because it's sometimes difficult to wrap really tiny pieces, which are very common in some limbs. You should see what I did with Fennekin. I have my leg, so let's attach it. The leg goes like this. Now, when you're attaching a piece that's you're building separate from the model, and the tabs are pointing upwards like this, usually it's best to build the main piece of the model so you get half of the whole. And that's where I believe it's easiest to attach. Because if you build too much of the whole, it starts to get in the way, and not enough, it's not going to stay on securely. So, either way, I'm going to attach this down here. Okay. There. one leg attached. I mean, it looks a little uneven right now, but because attaching the leg changes the angles, it'll look a little better once I get the other leg attached. Now, because the other front leg is built pretty much the same way, I think I'll cut the video here and come back tomorrow or so when I'm ready to attach the back legs, because on this model they're a little different. So, see you tomorrow. Okay, so I'm back, and as you can see, I've built all of him except the back legs. Now I'm going to show you how I attach those. Okay, so here you should be able to see the ring of tabs where I attach the back leg. And here's the first piece. I already cut it out to save time. As you can see in this case, the tabs point downward, so I build off the model and continue down. Now, let's attach the first piece here. Okay, so if building an arm or leg off the model, it's not really easier or more difficult than building it separately, but sometimes the situation requires you to do it this way. I mean, if you're building a piece separately, you can, well, you kind of need to be able to put your hands on the inside of the model so you can apply pressure when you're attaching it. And in the case of Raiko here, the legs are the last piece of the model to build, so I can't really apply any pressure from the inside when I'm attaching it. But when I'm building separately, I can apply pressure from down the leg where I'm going to be building, and I don't have to worry about that. So it's really, you can't build it separately if you're going to be closing it with that leg. You can still choose to build it separately if you've got the down pointing tabs, but it's probably easier to just build it off the model in that case. Attaching it could be a pain. I mean, it's doable. I've done it before, but in general, you want to avoid the model becoming more difficult to build than you need it to be. Now here, this connection could be a bit difficult. I've got to fold it over and get the angles right. Here. Get the glue on this tab and this tab. Actually, the glue doesn't seem to be sticking there. There. And now make sure I can attach both tabs at once. A little bit difficult, but nothing you can't handle. And there we have it. That's the start of the leg. Pretty much just build down from there like you would building down on any model. So let's skip ahead and see what the leg looks like when it's done. Okay, leg's almost done. All that's left to do is close it. Now, legs often get closed on the soles of the feet. Just glue everything, and like a hinge, press it down. It's not as difficult as most places you can close the model. unless the foot has a slightly curved bottom, in which case things aren't going to line up quite right. Here, I think I can get a better look from this angle. Unfortunately, you probably can't really see what I'm doing from this angle either. I think I'm going to need to figure out a few ways to set up this recording section a little bit. Yeah, good enough. And that makes 3 legs. Now comes the all-important 4th leg. Now, if there are 4 legs or wheels or whatever, there is one thing you have to worry about: getting all 4 legs balanced. Because if you're not careful, you could end up with one leg that's significantly shorter than the others, well, even if it's only slightly shorter than the others, it could be enough to cause the model to only stand on 3 of them and be wobbly. I mean, if there's only 3 legs, like my scalp here, no matter what angles I build the 3 legs at, or if one of them's significantly shorter than the other, it'll always stand on all of them, like is the case with his tail. But in the case of a 4-legged character, not so much. And it just means you got to be very careful building the last leg, especially, because this is a very easy mistake to make. It's something I still have issues with, despite being at this for over 4 years now, and it's really difficult to correct if it happens. So I'm going to build the 4th leg now. Wish me luck. Okay, so here I finished the model. I mean, the legs aren't quite as stable as I was hoping. One of them was a bit suspended after I closed them, but I figured there's only really one way to fix that, and that's to somehow adjust the angles on the legs, which is very difficult once the model is finished. I mean, I'm applying a little glue in one of the joints to try and do that, but aside from that, I think this covers the basics of building legs, and this can be used for arms, wings, wheels, any sort of appendage. So if you'd like this video, please feel free to subscribe to my channel, post comments, and I'm always open for suggestions for new videos. And that's it for today. See you next time. Bye.